everybody? Welcome to the Multiverse Show, Season 5, Episode 13. Thank you guys for tuning in. We are back with another great show with you guys. We have a lot of cool stuff we want to talk about today. We have Resident Evil 8 demo previews. We got some cool gaming news, and we got a Shang-Chi trailer. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But we want to get started, guys. First off, introductions for the evening. We have the Caesar of Cinema, the Baron of Britain himself, Mr. James Wilson. How you doing, sir?
I am feeling a bit sore, but in a good way, because I've finally done bench pressing and other things to that. It was a bit promising. I turned out to my first ever PT session and got over to the bench press, and they put 40 kilos on. So that was nice as a good starting point. I have heard that is a good number to start with. Other than that, I feel great. How are you guys?
Pretty good. And speaking of other guys, we have the White Wolf himself, Mr. Samuel Tolbert. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing pretty well. My audio quality is probably a little worse than usual. I'm working from my laptop in a secondary headset while my graphics card burned out and one of my headsets failed at basically the same time. So this is the backup plan. I'm working on getting both of those replaced. One of them will be infinitely easier than the other. But all things considered, hanging in there. Lots of fun stuff to talk about.
All right. And so we got some cool things we want to talk about. But first off, the immortal question we ask every single week: what have you guys been playing? Since I'm the only person who didn't play Resident Evil 8's demo yet, I'll go first. Then I'll let you guys go and geek out about that giantess porn simulator if you want. So, for me, I've been playing kind of all over the place. A little bit Outriders, Rainbow Six Siege as usual. First time I'm gonna try to complete a battle pass entirely. So I've been grinding that out. That's pretty much it for me. Haven't been playing much else beyond that. Watch a couple HBO Max shows, doing some rearranging around the apartment and such. So that's it. I'll let you guys take it off about Resident Evil 8. Take it away, Sam and James.
James, you never, like, I don't want to say never, but it's rare that you get to play a game
Be on the cutting edge of video games.
Exactly. Like it's rare that it's the leading thing for you. So I have some things to say, but I'll gladly cede the forefront to you. Please take it away.
All right. So last week we had a big news update from the Resident Evil team. The vast majority of that, I think it was like an hour, 45 minutes on YouTube stream going towards Resident Evil 8. There was a new trailer that dropped. I think they reinforced the release dates. But the big news was about the demo. So previously we had only had the Maiden demo, which is a little experience exclusively for PS5 users. I believe, Sam, you talked about it on the show. But now they've got 2 new demos being released in a ridiculously convoluted way. Why did they do it like this? Why did they do it like this? They decided to make the demos available at very, very specific times and only for a certain window. For 30 minutes is the length of each demo. There's 2 of them, 30 minutes each. And they're only available to play within 8 hours. Just with an 8-hour window, which, yeah, it's cool and it makes it a big talking point in social media and Twitter, and you get people streaming it, and you just get a bunch of coverage for Resi. So I completely get it, why they did it for that reason. But, what if you just couldn't make the time and you really want to play the demo, but you didn't get it? It felt a little bit annoying at the time. It's fine. It is fine. So I believe that the only demo I've played is the Village one. And I think that's the only one available, right, Sam?
Yeah, so basically what's going on, for anyone who doesn't know, is there's going to be a bigger 1-hour demo later on where you're going to be able to choose, you have an hour and you can break up your time. You can say, I want to spend 10 minutes in the village and 50 minutes in the castle, or, vice versa. You can do whatever. But PlayStation, marketing deal, whatever, has an early build of this demo. As James mentioned, it's available for a very annoyingly limited amount of time. It's only an 8-hour window. So even though they let you preload it, it's you better be quick. But they're splitting it up and giving PlayStation users an early chance. So 30 minutes in the village, that was just available. And I think next week it's going to be 30 minutes in the castle. And then the final week before the game comes out, it's going to be the full multi-platform demo, 1 hour, wherever you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we both played it. There's really not that much to say about it. It's at least from what I played, it is very, very similar. It is practically identical gameplay wise to Resident Evil 7, based on this 30-minute preview. The item screen and that's the big change. It's the user interface within like crafting and item management and all of that stuff. That's the biggest change so far that we can see. But they seem to have expanded the lore of this particular area of Resident Evil, because we always knew that they were very, very open from the very beginning of the marketing for Resi 7 that this is part of the Resident Evil canon. This is not a new thing. This is a continuation of the story. That wasn't very obvious while playing Resi 7 until you got to like the last like 20-30 minutes where they start just heavily going in on Umbrella and the actual biohazard and all of that different stuff. This seems a lot more Resi, but Resi 4. Right, Sam?
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. That's what I've seen a lot of other people saying. And man, I don't know about you. I don't think that's a bad thing. Like taking the horror and taking the slow-paced, methodical, gothic horror of like Resi 7 and the puzzle solving and all that, but then combining it with, oh, we've also got, the cheese and the structure of Resident Evil 4. That's not a bad thing by any stretch of the imagination. I'm fine with it.
I would hesitate calling Resident Evil 7 gothic horror as a person who Southern Gothic. Okay, I beg your pardon. Yeah. Because when I think gothic horror, I'm like, Frankenstein, Lovecraft, Edgar Allan Poe.
But this is
I don't think of Chainsaw.
I don't think you disagree with it. This is gothic horror in the traditional sense. Captain.
Oh yeah, and I'm well here for it. Ivan, unfortunately, there are no 9-foot-tall vampire women in this demo.
Well, I'm out. Sorry.
But she is in the next one. Just when you think you're out, they bring you back in.
He beat me by like 1 second. But I enjoy the Lycans as enemies, and one thing that kind of surprised me, I don't know about you, James, is how much more story focused this seems to be. I'm not saying Resident Evil 7 wasn't focused, but it was very, you know what I mean, like the dinner scene that you have with the Baker family early on is like, that's the exception, not the rule. That's a standout scene, but most of the time it's not like that. A lot of this, and I mean a lot of this demo, if you're following the correct path, takes place in cutscenes, and it's you talking with people and trying to figure out what's going on and see if you can help them, and most likely you can't, and they're going to get eaten, but the point is you get to know them, and I really liked that. I really liked this sense of yes, this is literally a village. I truly believe this is a community being worn down by attacks, unsure of what's going on, and I'm in on it. I'm so in on this atmosphere. God, I cannot wait for this full game.
Yeah, it's very much it's that great lived-in scenario where you walk in. It's the difference between the Star Wars prequels and Alien. You can see this is a spaceship that has history. It's not clean. It's not pristine. There's bits of worn when you can see people using it in a slightly different way. It's really cool, and I love that. The first thing you do, the first enemy you kill is this thing it's a Lycan. It's not a werewolf. It's not quite a human. It's somewhere in between. And then the moment you're done with that, you get introduced to the concept that those are human beings that have gone wrong. It's now as Bloodborne's greatest stan, hell yes, because that's very, very much the same thing. You get presented with a werewolf, and then 5 minutes later you get told, "Oh no, that was just Brian,"
Yeah, for real. They do not. No spoilers in case you didn't play it through and you don't want to know. But they do not skimp on the idea that these are not just zombies. These are human beings being driven mad. It's great.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
Now I'm interested.
very, very up.
Wait a minute.
I'm very, very up for all of this.
Not zombies,
Yes.
you say? Not zombies, you say?
I mean, as far as I can see, there aren't any. I mean, there also weren't any zombies in 7.
No, there weren't. But honestly, like, and here's the thing. Here's the thing. Even then, these Lycans have much more personality than the molded did in 7.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong. I love 7. 7 is such a brilliant game, but like the molded didn't have a lot of personality. You've seen one molded, you've seen them all. Some of these Lycans are more bestial than the others. You bring up Bloodborne, James, and that's a great comparison because it's like some of them just look like human beings, and it's like dude just needs a haircut and his beard trimmed. But otherwise,
there was literally one. There was literally like one of them was wearing a shirt.
Exactly.
Wearing a shirt.
Exactly. Like one of them looks like he's just recently transformed, but the others are like they look like they're on their way to becoming werewolves, and it's like. That's really cool, and I want to see what else. Like, if this is what's in the game's first 30 minutes, first hour, what on earth does it have later on? I want to see, like, the real depravities that this game will unleash, and I don't just mean Lady Dimitrescu in the bedroom. Heyo!
I am begging for there not to be a lab. I don't want to see a goddamn lab.
Same. I love Resident Evil 7. I love Resident Evil 2 Remake and 3 Remake. I'm with you. I do not want a sterile environment. I'm kind of sick of Resident Evil games ending in a sterile lab where you have to fight the super mutant bioweapon. Like, no.
Well, we're gonna have to fight a big bio thing.
Okay, that's fine, but not in a sterile environment. That's the issue I've got. Is like
if it was something, if it ends up being something akin to, imagine if the Nemesis found a village in Eastern Europe and just spent 50 years developing as some weird elder deity that is worshipped. That I would play, and I think that's sort of what we're gonna get. I'm very, very excited. Nice. Will I get a PS5 before it comes out? Probably not. But that's just life.
I'll keep crossing my fingers for you. Now, here's the thing. Here's the real catch. You played the demo on PS4 then, I presume.
I have.
Obviously.
Yes.
Are you going to play this game on PS4 if it comes out and you still don't have a PS5?
I think I will.
That's fair. That's fair. If I were in your position, I'd probably do the same thing. I was just curious.
I think if it's one of those where if I buy it on PS4, I'll get the PS5 version. I assume.
That's correct. Yes, Capcom is doing free.
Have they said that? Yeah.
Capcom is doing free.
Then that's fine. Then I'll do that.
Yep.
I got no problem playing it again. I was probably going to play it 4 or 5 times anyway.
All right. So we'll head into our first official topic.
Well, there's one.
I thought that was a good segue. I'm sorry.
Since we're talking about long women, I want to quickly talk about an upcoming game called Ghosts. Now, this is not Call of Duty Ghosts, and this is not Ghosts of Tsushima. This is a different type of Ghosts. This is London Ghosts, and specifically South London Ghosts. Now, I've talked on this podcast about a film called Host, which is a brilliant. I guess it's found footage. Yeah, it's a found footage horror film. It's set on Zoom. It's a Zoom conference where they do a seance, and it all goes wrong. Brilliant concept, 56 minutes long. It's on Shudder. Go and get the free trial and watch it. One of the best films of 2020. Easily the best horror film of last year. Now, the writer of that film, Jed Shepard, and a lot of, I think all of the actors bar one are coming back for this full FMV horror game. Now, we don't know really anything about it other than it's an FMV game. But the thing is, it's going to be only available to play starting at 10 p.m. local time. So wherever you are in the world, you can only play it exactly at 10 p.m. Whether that has anything to do with the story, we don't know. The game is going to be coming to PlayStation, PC, Xbox, Switch, and Mac. And it's going to be released, currently it's planned to be released on February 22nd, 2022. So it's just a lot of twos. and we don't know about the villain other than she's called the Long Lady. Jed has on Twitter been posting cryptic pictures of just black and white houses in London, and if you zoom in, you can see a very, very tall woman in the background. And when I say very tall, I mean like at the size of the house, very tall and thin. Think Siren Head, but just a woman.
Yeah, I just heard
So
about
there we
Siren
go.
Head recently.
Yes.
Is this like a
God,
thing?
Yes. Sorry, Ivan, go ahead.
Like, I just like heard about Siren Head
Yes.
like 2 or 3 days ago. Is this like a thing? I've never heard of it before.
Oh, Siren Head is a very established thing. Siren Head is like the new what's his face, Slender Man.
Oh.
In terms of in terms
the
of like
Gen Z
it's a
Slenderman?
ghost story that is no. Siren Head's different to Slender Man because it's like it's less stupid, but it's more stupid. But it's I can't explain it, man. This is the weird world of like if I start talking about this, I have to start talking about the SCP Foundation, and then we could be here for 7 days if you let me go on that. Yeah, but I'm not talking about Siren Head. I'm talking about the Long Lady, and I'm talking about ghosts. I don't think. When was the last time any of us really played an FMV? Did anyone here play Erica?
I did not. I heard mixed things about Erica. It's been a long time since I played an FMV.
For the guys watching at home, what do you consider an FMV here? Because some people won't be familiar with that term.
I was going to use Erica because that was the one that was on Plus recently. This is a game where it's not animated; it's full motion video, FMV. It would be complete. Yeah, so I'm not talking something like Edith Finch or anything like that.
Gotcha.
No, this is not. I mean, we don't know how the game's going to play. We know literally nothing about it, but I just think this is a cool thing to do. I think horror is always a great genre to try new things in. I know FMVs aren't exactly new; they've been around since Night Trap.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm here for it. If the host team are doing it, then let's watch it.
Heck yeah! And it's funny you bring up Night Trap. That's definitely like the most infamous example, even though it was overblown to say the least. But that's another topic.
But it's got a great song as well in Night Trap. Sorry, am I the only one who's actually played Night Trap?
I played a long time ago, Dean.
Night Trap. You're gonna find you Night Trap. Oh, you'll have the time of your life. It's a great song. And the thing about that song is if you play the game and you listen to that song, you are not doing the mission correctly. And you are letting people die and you're being willful about it. So there you go. So, to recap, play Night Trap and play Ghosts when it comes out in February next year.
All right. All right, so we'll get into some of our main topics here because we know people are stretched for time here. So first off, on our docket of topics, we're actually going to talk about a reverse course that we mentioned last week.
I think. Okay, do you mind if I just give my take very quickly on this? I think what this represents is actually more important than them making the decision itself. Because they still have the same problem facing them after this that they had this time last year, or this time 6 months ago before this decision came about, and then they reversed it. That problem being the legacy of their stores and like the legacy of their content and that content being cut off. That isn't changing. That is still a problem that they're going to have to address. So that's not the important thing being addressed here. The important thing is this shows they can listen. This is them. This is specifically Jim Ryan pushing back on the idea that they aren't in touch with what the PlayStation audience wants, that they can pivot on a dime and listen to them. And I think that's actually the more important thing to take away from this.
Any impressions, James, before we move on? There's not much really to say about it. It's good, but...
No, I think I think it's a good thing, and I don't think it's a bad thing.
Right. Yeah, my only thing I'll say about it is I wouldn't call this pivoting on a dime, more like a quarter. I mean, they waited a week. I mean, that's still fairly short in corporate time, I guess, but it's more like what was it? For example, earlier this year we had a situation where Xbox announced where they were going to do get rid of the cheaper prices for Xbox Live. You bought it in a bundle of a year. They were going to get rid of that entirely. Now the trade-off now, well, so then they changed their position like within a day. I would say that's turning on a dime. That maybe not a dime for a week's turnaround, but that's my opinion at least. But still a good thing. I'm glad they did it, and they did it fairly quickly, so that's good. Other than that, anything else you guys want to add before we move on in terms of topics?
No.
Yeah, nothing for me.
All right. So other than that, we got the Shang-Chi trailer, or rather teaser trailer came out today. So we got to see that. Did you guys get a chance to watch it?
I did.
All right.
Yes,
brief
I
impressions
did.
here. Quick thoughts. What do you think?
I thought it looked really cool. And I wish I knew actually anything about anything about Shang-Chi to go beyond it looked really cool. But it did. It looked like Iron Fist, but good.
Yeah, basically, I'll echo that last comment. Iron Fist, but good. That's exactly what it looks like. I'm down for it. I'm not gonna say I'm hyped out of my mind. Like, I'm not gonna pretend I'm like, yo, Shang-Chi, this is my fave, but this is cool. This is really cool. I'm glad to see it. I'm glad to see, Asian American representation and all that, especially given some of the stuff going on in the US. Like, that's an important time for this to be a big Marvel film. So yeah, I'm down to see it.
Yep. All right. So I want to do a quick breakdown for you guys, at least in terms of who Shang-Chi is and why this kind of matters. So I watched the trailer too.
So the only thing I know.
Okay.
The only thing I know for certain is the Ten Rings. Is like a famous villain of like Iron Man.
Yeah, that'd be the Mandarin.
Yes, and the Mandarin was Iron Man 3, but it wasn't the Mandarin. It was Trevor Slattery. But also, weren't the Ten Rings wasn't it? It wasn't explicitly said, but weren't they the guys who basically inadvertently created Iron Man by capturing Tony Stark in the first one?
Oh no, it's advertently stated. They literally say they call themselves the Ten Rings.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to how they figure this out, and especially with the spoilers for Iron Man 3 at this point, but like the whole fake out with the Mandarin. Definitely curious how they're going to reconcile that info.
So, okay, before we get started looking at the Shang-Chi, what if anything do you know about Shang-Chi other than the things that's in the trailer? Anybody here?
Absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
Very little. I can tell you some things about the Mandarin and the Ten Rings, but not Shang-Chi specifically.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Gotcha. You guys had nothing. Okay, I want to get an idea before we started getting into this shit. So this is more intended as a casual introduction into who Shang-Chi is. So, at least in the terms of the Marvel universe, first and foremost, he was created in the 70s. The 70s and early 80s were kind of a weird time for Marvel. It was about, hey, we have success with like our classic superheroes, but we need to keep making more superheroes so we can increase our viewership. So this is where you started seeing other characters get created, kind of like fill in certain blanks. So for example, Luke Cage got in there to kind of like get the blaxploitation film market. That's what they were attempting to do. You had Iron Fist was created in the same kind of vein, but this one, Shang-Chi, was more trying to get that hold of that martial arts kung fu movie kind of vibe. That's what they were trying to shoot for in this scenario. Very strange times we live in, so it's just kind of all over the place. I mean, literally Marvel threw everything at the wall trying to create characters. Like in the early 80s, they created a character called what was his name? It was like Ulysses Solomon Archer, and he was a super trucker. Yes, it was a character created around being a semi tractor trailer trucker. And he had like a metal plate, and he was able to pick up radio waves in his head so he could tell if there was danger down the road. It's a very weird time. They threw everything at the wall. That gives you a little more context in terms of the characters they were creating. They were just trying to hit every market they possibly could. So Shang-Chi has his own run. Like I think originally his dad was like a criminal, but he was like trained like in martial arts since he was a very young age. His mom was like his mom was white, but was like genetically bred to like create superior offspring or something. This is stuff that they brush over very quickly and never go back to. Namely because his father's name was Fu Manchu, and yeah, that didn't sound good over time. So, really with Shang-Chi, he doesn't really have like a whole mantra. Like his whole main thing, at least where he fits in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or not maybe a cinematic, the Marvel Comics universe. He is the greatest martial artist of all time. Uh, he routinely like he's beaten Captain America, he's beaten Spider-Man, and he is completely human. They make it very abundantly clear he has no superpowers, but he is able to beat superpowered beings with his skill. Now they do give him some like chi manipulation abilities over time, but it's mostly still it's very much intended that like, hey, anybody can do this with practice and training. Shang-Chi is one of those characters, at least in terms of the overarching group. They don't really make like any heavy stories for him. They kind of lumped him in with the Iron Fist extended universe of people. Um, what is it? Like there's a bunch of other characters that are like Iron Fist, like Bride of Spiders, Prince of Orphans, where they're all like heroes of their own mystical realms, and they kind of lump him in that group. That's kind of where he fits. He definitely hangs out in the Iron Fist Heroes for Hire Luke Cage kind of world. So like if you guys watched Iron Fist or the Defenders, uh, what's her name? What's the lady who has the
Colleen
katana?
Wing.
Yes, Colleen Wing. She's very heavily associated with Shang-Chi. She's definitely in that branch. So it's that kind of like street level crime thing that he does. But he's like done certain things, but he mostly gets kind of lumped into certain groups of the Marvel universe. So like whenever Spider-Man was doing his whole like Island of Spiders or Spider Chaos, I forgot what they called it, but basically they had a bunch of superheroes that ended up on an island that were given spider powers, and Shang-Chi was one of them. That's kind of it. During Secret Avengers, he shows up, and he's just kind of like a background fighter. He spars routinely with Captain America. They really don't give him a lot to do. He's kind of like a blank slate character. It's more of a like, hey, we got a character we can do whatever we want with this character here. So really, they could mold his entire character around the MCU and no one would really complain. So that's your brief casual history of Shang-Chi. It's not a lot, like I mentioned. So
No, but it's still good. Like, it still gives me, especially building on what I do know about the Mandarin and the Ten Rings. Like, I'm interested to see this adapted and where they go with it. I'll put it that way.
yeah, the Mandarin thing is going to be very interesting in terms of what they do. Like in the comics, the Mandarin's
I mean,
an
I
actual.
hope it's just not a bunch of
Yeah.
people explaining things at me for 90 minutes and then 20 minutes of fighting scenes.
Yeah.
I mean, it probably is going to be that, but you know.
I don't know what they're going to do necessarily.
This is the first new character. This is the first new character introduced into the. So there's actually quite a lot riding on this film. Like, this is the first solo introduction movie since Ant-Man.
Is it? Captain Marvel came out, remember?
I stand corrected.
Yeah, I mean, it made $1 billion, but hey,
Yeah,
I
no,
wouldn't.
yeah,
I
no,
wouldn't.
no,
Hey,
yeah,
in
you're
between
right.
that base between it was it Infinity War and Endgame, it's hard to remember what movies came out in between. So hey, I'd give you that much. But no, it's such a weird scenario. Like, at least the Mandarin in the comics, he's more of an actual person. He has 10 literal rings that have like super. Oh, there's like they call it mystic powers, but it's largely implied they're like space rings, and they give you
Yeah.
powers. But Yeah, they basically
Here it
completely
seems
changed
like they
something
aren't
else.
literal rings he wears on his fingers, but like they seem to be like draped over him, like a chain necklace type
Yeah.
deal.
So we'll see what they do. It'll be interesting.
Speaking of more MCU things, just a quick news thing that broke today. A new cast addition to the Secret Invasion show. Olivia Colman is slated to join the show. Most people know her as playing the Queen in two series, the most recent two series of The Crown. She was also an Oscar winner for her role in The Favourite, and she's brilliant. And she's going to be in the show, so
Cool.
that's great. She's really funny.
Looks like that would be cool. So, other than that,
Yeah.
we got other topics to discuss. That's actually our main topic.
I will say, with that piece of news, I'm going to bid you all adieu. Once you get onto the topic, I will just quickly add that you should buy games at full price if you really want them, but don't have a go at people for not having money. There we go. And
Wise
with that,
wisdom from
good night,
Mr.
everybody.
Wilson. I'm gonna brand that Wilson wisdom. All right, so let's get into the topic here. So Sam, do you want to kind of lead us in here real quick? Just kind of give a little some backstory because this has been an ongoing discussion of things that have been going on.
I can give the backstory leading up to this, but this is actually kind of your topic in terms of the latest
just
drama.
give people the backstory here. That's all I was asking for.
Right. So basically, if you've been living under a rock or you somehow missed the whole discourse in the fallout of Jason Schreier's piece over at Bloomberg, he talked about a lot of different things going on at PlayStation and Sony and Control and how studios are being managed. And a big crux of that was Ben's studio. And a big crux of the part of Ben's studio was Days Gone 2. More specifically, that some of the leadership responsible for that, like John Garvin and Jeff Ross, had left. We knew that part, but that the pitch for Days Gone 2 was not approved. And in the wake of this, suffice to say, there has been a lot of discussion. And there has been, there's just been a lot. There's just been a lot going on in general. I know, like, both the two I mentioned, Jeff Ross and John Garvin, have been on David Jaffe's show. Jeff Ross did not really say a lot. He looked very uncomfortable most of the time he was on. My understanding, however, is that John Garvin did, however, talk a fair bit. Is that correct, Ivan?
Yeah. So where Jeff Ross was more about things like he was saying more like things along the lines of confirming what Schreier said specifically, and we talked about that last episode where it was more he was confirming that what Schreier said was essentially correct, but Jaffe has an issue with Schreier anyway, and so was trying to negate that, and it's just weird. It doesn't make a lot of sense in terms of why they bothered even trying to have an argument associated with it, but here we are anyway. John Garvin had very animated statements about what he believed the situation was. So I want to pull up the exact quote because I don't want to misquote him. So first and foremost, Garvin does not work for Sony Bend anymore. He's gone. So he does not represent Sony in this case. We'll talk about what this means later, but we'll just want to make sure that it's abundantly clear. He's not speaking for Sony at this time. So one of the questions that was asked to them on Jaffe's podcast was about whether or not Days Gone, which is on PlayStation Plus now, having a meaningful uptick in engagement in the petition in particular to make a Days Gone 2 would actually mean anything. Would actually mean anything in terms of persuading Sony to have a sequel or not. So Garvin said, "I do have an opinion on something that your audience might find of interest, and it might piss some of them off. If you love a game, buy it at full price. I can't tell you how many times I've seen gamers say, yeah, I got it on sale. I got it through PlayStation Plus, whatever." And so Jaffe kind of responded back with that, asking him and say, like, hey, how are you supposed to know if you like a game or love a game before you play it? And he's like, I'm just saying you don't. Just don't complain if a game doesn't get a sequel if it wasn't supported at launch. It's like God of War got whatever number of millions of sales at launch, and Days Gone didn't. I'm just speaking for me personally as a developer. I don't work for Sony. I don't know what the numbers are. And so he kind of goes off about Siphon Filter and past games. So I can tell you when we were doing Siphon Filter or Dark Mirror on PSP, we got effed on Dark Mirror because piracy was a thing, and Sony wasn't really caught up on what piracy was doing to sales. And we would show them torrents. The torrent had 200,000 copies of Dark Mirror being downloaded. Remember it right? The numbers could be wrong. I was pissed about it then. I was like, this is money out of my pocket. So I think the uptick in engagement with the game is not as important. Did you buy the game? Not as important as did you buy the game at full price? Because if you did, that's supporting the developers directly. So, needless to say, this caused a bit of an uproar on Twitter. A lot of different people weighed in on this, and before I even do my little spiel about it, Sam, I want to get your opinion on this, man. What do you think about this particular statement? Is he right? Is he wrong? Is it just a tone issue? What do you think?
So I'm gonna say this as carefully as I can, but as honestly as I can. I don't know John Garvin. I've never interviewed him. Well, if I get to interview him, hey, that's cool. Nothing but respect. Like, I like Days Gone. I like Days Gone stories. And it's quite an accomplishment that he wrote the entirety of Days Gone. Like, you know how most games have multiple writers who write all the dialogue and write all the different storylines and all that? John Garvin wrote every word of dialogue. One thing in particular that I don't think a lot of people get is that Days Gone had a very small team. They had 1 or 2 people doing the things that normally entire teams would do. So that's pretty impressive, and I think that's worth noting. And I also want to add that I don't think he's wrong per se. If you buy a full price copy of the game, you support the developer. So, okay, like, I want to be clear. I don't think that's wrong. That is objectively correct information that isn't going to change. With that in mind, I do think this is perhaps a kind of old school, outdated, dare I say, sense of thinking in terms of, well, it's all about sales and that's all it is. Because, to be blunt, Days Gone sold well. The sales were not the issue. There's a reason people assumed that Days Gone was getting a sequel until Schreier's report. It may not have critically reviewed well because for some reason Sony pushed it out when the final patches weren't ready. It needed another month or 2 for it to be stable, and it was very unstable during the review period. That's a fact. I'm tired of people pushing back on that. But, like, that's a Sony issue. Like, you got to take that up with Sony, and that's fine. And I understand he left right after the game shipped, and I'm not going to read into it. I'm not going to make any judgment calls or anything. I'm just noting that as an objective fact. Like, that is something a lot of people didn't know. But sales weren't the issue for Days Gone. So, dare I say it, I'm kind of inclined to say this feels like lashing out, and this feels like just being angry and yelling at the clouds. And it's like, maybe that's not the issue here. Jeff Ross confirmed Days Gone outsold every previous game Sony Bend made put together. Like, I understand, like, budget is an issue and scope, but don't tell me that sales are the one and done reason Days Gone 2 got denied. I'm not that stupid. I don't believe it. Is it part of it? Sure. I think part of it is that you have Ghost of Tsushima at 6.5 million copies sold. You have God of War at, like, I think over 10 million and critically acclaimed. You have Horizon Zero Dawn at well over 11 million at this point. Like, does that play? Marvel Spider-Man is God almighty. I think that's 20 million by now, close to 20 million. Like, Spider-Man is absolute insanity. So I think that plays into it, sure, but I don't think that's all there is to it. I don't believe that.
Yeah. I know for me, I had a couple different thoughts about it, really. I want to first and foremost say this does not look good. Even though he doesn't work for Sony, this doesn't weigh good on them. Like, I'm not saying, like, this is not like, it's not like a thing where it's like, hey, yeah, you're at fault. Like, we need Sony to have make a response. But, like, the fact that someone worked there that had this kind of behavior, I think is not telling, but I don't think it's definitely not a normal type of employee. But it just looks bad. It turns into a bad PR situation for Sony either way. But that's my kind of thinking about it. It's just someone who's related to you in that case. But other than that, I just don't. I don't even start with this. Let me rethink about how I want to approach this. I just don't.
All right, well, while you
go ahead.
think of that, while you think on that, can I say one other very quick thing?
Sure, please.
Actually, two other very quick things. One of them is bigger than the other. One is I'll respectfully disagree with you in terms of PR. If he had just left Sony, I would probably agree with you. But like I said, he's been gone a while at this point.
Yeah.
It's been many days gone. Dare I make a really dumb pun for this situation? Like it's been over 2 years at this point. So I'm not quite sure I agree in that. Like, what is the PR situation for them? They haven't had. I'm just pushing back on that slightly, but more importantly, like the bigger thing is, I do think this highlights something in terms of gaming models, in terms of a subscription, where hey, maybe Days Gone would have benefited from launching in PS Plus or being a part of PS Now, where people could have tried it, and maybe it doesn't sell 10 million copies, but it sells 4 million, and it gets another 800,000 people to sign up for PS Now, giving you that recurring revenue. Just putting it out there. I'm just saying, like, different revenue models and all that. I just want to say that. Anyways, if you have what you want.
Peeved me off is that it came off more as I'm going to blame the gamers for this game not getting a green light for a sequel. And I'm like, you can't. If anybody you should be mad at Sony, because they're the ones who decided to give away a PlayStation Plus or put it on sale. They made those decisions. The gamers didn't make the decision for it to go on sale. Now, they may not have bought it, but that's not their fault. You don't blame the market for that kind of thing. Now, the funny thing about it, I think you definitely you really struck a chord there, Sam, is that I guarantee this game wouldn't have failed if it had a Game Pass model. Because this is like, hey, people actually could play your game, and you wouldn't have to worry about it hitting like a sales figure or like a critical thing. Because if it has enough engagement, they'll get a sequel. They'll greenlight that. But it's one of those things where we talked about this last week. Because I think with Sony, for them, their number one thing that determines about the success of a franchise is the critical success. If it doesn't have the critical success, everything else is just kind of secondary. Like we talked about Gravity Rush.
Exactly. I agree with you. I fully 100% agree with you. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but like that's the thing. And it's like, and if it comes back to critical success, the critics are just reporting what they played, and we all know, I've said it multiple times, I'll say it again and again, Days Gone was a different game in the review process versus when it launched. So maybe your anger is misplaced, and you really should have gotten the green light from Sony to delay Days Gone like a month or two more. Yeah. Just saying.
Like, that was the whole big thing about it, though. It was all about the bugs in particular were the main reason why it got a bunch of negative reviews. But that's kind of the main gist of that there. But yeah, I think that it's this kind of model. This is what the problem becomes. It becomes about sustainability, and not only do you have to sell so much, but you also have to get that like a critical success, at least for Sony. Like, yeah, it'd be one thing if it sold like 10 million units or something like that. Like, that's a different scenario. I would assume Sony would not be as pig-headed enough to shut it down over a couple of units. But it's just such a strange thing to me specifically. It doesn't come off as a reasonable thing to blame people for not buying a game they didn't know they liked. It just comes off really rude and gatekeeping, and it just comes off wrong.
Like, dude, and this okay. I want to say this as well, man, because I think you're 100% right, Evan. I think you're 100% right, and you're hitting the right nail on the right head here. Speaking as someone who buys all of his games, like I buy stuff that goes into Game Pass. Don't ask me why. Like, I'm dumb this way. And I get review codes for stuff, but I then end up buying it anyways. It's like a compulsion. It's probably a problem. Speaking as someone like that, I bought the collector's edition of Days Gone at launch. So I feel very, very capable of saying you should not expect that from people. People are going to wait and look at review scores. People have limited cash. The average person, I hate this data-driven word, consumer, if you will, is only going to buy 3 to 4 games a year. Like, that's shown. There's a reason Game Pass is changing spending habits, and it's a market disruptor because it's altering how the average user engages with an ecosystem. But under a traditional model, which Sony uses, and to be very fair here, Sony dominated during the PS4 generation. They clearly know something about a traditional model. Under that model, you cannot expect someone to just drop $60 on a game blindly. You can't. $70 now.
Yeah, it's like that's why I say it's a PR problem for Sony in this, because it comes off as, hey, one of our guys is like, buy it at launch no matter what, and it doesn't matter the quality of it overall, just buy it. If you don't do that, it's not going to get us a sequel, and they just increase the price. It just comes off to the rest of the world like, hey, if you don't buy our game day one at the full asking price, you're worthless to us. Your opinion doesn't mean anything. That's how it comes off. It may not be intended. Like I said, this guy doesn't work for Sony, but I know people read it that way. It's like, hey, he worked for Sony. This means that he at some point had similar views. But I will say, like, even then, he talked about later, like, he said, like, hey, I'm an abrasive guy. Like, I didn't work well as in a team setting anyway. So whatever. And so he's like, I grew out of the company because they didn't really want me there anymore, and that's kind of his whole thing he had to worry about. But it's more personalities and not being a good look overall. In a time where Sony's looking for good PR, I mean, literally the only good thing we've really talked about was about correcting a self-inflicted wound. Like, it's not much here right
I
now.
get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. I think, shout out to Benji Sales, great guy on Twitter. I said this on Gaming Perspective podcast, but I'll say it here as well, a Multiverse. He made a great point on Twitter when he said, like, a lot of this is due to the fact that there just isn't anything. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of this is self-inflicted, I say in quotation marks, but COVID is a thing that has disrupted, where, like, God of War, as hyped as I am for that, is a logo. Horizon is one trailer. And like 2 screenshots after that. And they need to show that stuff. And once they show that stuff, a lot of this is going to disappear.
Yeah.
I think, definitely. But until they show it, it kind of percolates.
Yep. A lot of questions. But yeah. I don't really have much else to say about that. Anything from you, Sam? Or we get out of here?
Not really. I think I've kind of gone off enough. I went off more than I was expecting to for that topic, to say the least.
All right. Well, we'll wrap things up here then. Sam, where can good people find you, sir?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Samuel Tolbert. That's TOLBERT. You can find all my litany of written stuff over at iMore, Android Central, Windows Central, and right now over at Tech Radar. And for a little while yet. Actually just wrote, I don't think I shared it on Twitter. I need to, but shameless self-promotion. I wrote something about the Mass Effect Legendary Edition and how BioWare is like actually, this is what BioWare intended from the beginning in terms of the way it looks and all that. So if I haven't shared it yet, I'll be sure to do that. Go check it out.
Yeah, I watched that trailer too, actually, now that I think about it. I thought that was interesting because it's, at least with the first game, they made a lot of stylistic choices to hide up technical to hide technical problems. Well, not problems, technical shortcomings, rather. Like, they made those choices to hide them, but apparently people like them so much. It's like, oh yeah, we just want to keep, we like those shortcomings. They create a different style. We liked it. I'm like, but it doesn't look better. It's a stylistic choice that hid the problems. But anyway.
Exactly. No, dude, thank you. I'm so glad that you get that. Like, that's the crux of my article, to say the least, was like people saying, you changed the atmosphere. It's like, guys, the BioWare, by BioWare's own admission, you can find them in like dev talks talking about this in 2010, 2011. By their own admission, early Unreal Engine was ugly and they had to hide stuff behind crushed blacks. Like, they are on record saying that. This is, it's like there's not an artistic integrity argument to stand on here.
Yeah. But I do understand that, at least in terms as a basic thing. It's like, hey, they made it's a strong stylistic choice with the intention of hiding technical shortcomings, but people played it enough, it became like an expectation. So I can understand people being a little upset about it because it's different than I remember.
Sure. I mean, again, like, I understand that, but at the same time, I think artistic integrity isn't an argument when it's the original artist. At least that's the way I see it. And I'll apply that as well to the extended cut, which is now the default ending. And people who complained about the extended cut and people whining for more in their ending get to shut up, because that's now the default. So it goes both ways. It definitely goes both ways. I hear you.
All right. Well, we're going to get out of here. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Multiverse show on Mondays. Thank you guys for really showing up. We appreciate you guys coming in every week. Please remember to check us out on Spotify. I got a couple episodes to upload on there. We're going to be putting that up there as soon as I possibly can. Thank you guys for tuning in. We got some announcements, at least in terms of sponsorships, going next week. I do want to talk about those, and we'll get out of here. Get out of here.